chickens in there. My goodness. Look at all the people out there. Hi, everybody. It's Robert Earl out here at, are you ready for it? The Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Education Center. We're going to change the name a little bit, just make it longer so it sounds more important. Anyway, I'm here with Cascade the Wonder Dog, and as usual, we wonder what it is he does around here. Going to do part 2 of the saga of the meat chickens. Now, you'll notice I changed the name from everything you wanted to know about meat chickens to the meat chicken experiment, because that's really what this has turned into, is more of an experiment than a how to raise meat chickens, because quite honestly, how to raise meat chickens is going to vary based on the part of the country you live in. In other words, if you live in the desert like I do, what I'm showing you is going to work perfectly for you and probably is the only way. But it's not going to work up in Pennsylvania, as every one of Joel Salatin's videos will show you, because you can pasture up in Pennsylvania, and it's not going to work in Alaska because you're not going to be able to pasture for at least 9 months out of the year. So we're going to talk about this experiment, because this experiment is something that'll work no matter where you are, whether you're in Alaska, Pennsylvania, or right here in the desert. And let's get into it. And welcome to either part 2 of the great meat chicken experiment, or to the first video that I've posted on the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Education Center YouTube channel. Now, if you have tuned into that channel, this is starting out as part 2. You missed part 1, but you didn't really miss it. You have to go to the to my other YouTube channel, which is Eco Ranch USA. Eco Ranch USA. That's the channel, and part 1 is there. You need to see part 1 because that's full of important information about feed and a lot of other things, but mainly feed and what you get when you buy chicken feed. Now, this is part 2. Part 2 is mainly going to be some facts and figures. The chickens are 8 weeks old, and also I've changed the name. If you saw the first video, it was entitled Everything You Wanted to Know About Meat Chickens. Well, nobody can say that. So I can't really tell you everything about meat chickens because, first of all, I don't know everything about them. Secondly, what you need to know is going to vary on where you live. So I renamed it what it actually is, which is a meat chicken experiment. Now, that happened after we did the first video. I got to thinking about what I was doing and why, and I determined that this needs to be actually an experiment to see if the costs of raising a Cornish Cross or a Cornish rooster, we'll call them Cornish Crosses here, if the cost of raising a Cornish Cross per pound is better or worse than the cost of raising roosters like these guys. So that's going to be what the experiment's about. Let me go into a little bit more detail with you about that. Now, as you can tell, there's going to be a lot of cuts and edits in this. This is actually take 2 because I didn't like take 1. So in take 2, there'll be some cuts and edits like this one. So why is this an experiment? Well, I kind of touched on it, but here's the thing, and here's what got me thinking about it. You know, here, my concept here at the Eco Ranch is a little bit different. You know, I could have built this place myself for Debbie and I to retire on, and, you know, we could have just had a nice retirement and lived rather comfortably. I don't like that. I want to share all the things I've learned over a long and really a full life. I'd like to share that all with you. Some of the things that you just don't know, you just don't learn anymore. I mean, some of you, your parents are much younger than I am, and I'm really quite young compared to some of the information that I'd like to impart on people throughout the whole Sustainable Education Center concept. A lot of things have been lost. For example, look up creaming a cake. See how, if any of you know how to cream a cake. That's lost from the 50s. That's one of the things I'll teach out here, among many other things. That might be a bad example, but The one thing that is constant is I want to teach and preach how to live a one-planet lifestyle. I've said it before, and most everyone knows it. America lives at a 7-planet lifestyle. Europe lives at a 3-planet lifestyle. We only have one planet. The resources are diminishing. Fisheries are crashing. There's plastic all over the ocean. They've even found microplastics in that big scam of bottled water that everybody seems to think they have to drink nowadays. I mean, we're doing quite a bit of damage. And I want to help everybody to live in the world that is being created by it, the world that's going to change from the one I knew, and possibly roll some of that back over the next few generations. So that's one of the things that we do. Now, how do we teach a sustainable living? Well, it's real simple. The 3 R's, my #1 mantra out here: recycle, reuse, repurpose. The 3 R's of sustainable living. Now, you expand on that to how can I do everything in a cost-effective manner? And cost-effective doesn't necessarily mean dollars and cents. It means costs to the planet. That's where the great meat chicken experiment comes in. You know, you order Cornish Crosses or Cornish roosters from the hatchery. Now, you're going to place your order. They're going to take the eggs, which they have chickens that they're raising, that they're keeping alive to lay the eggs. They put the eggs in the incubator, they hatch out of the incubator. In the room next door, they're filling orders that total, let's say 2,000 Rhode Island red hens, because 2,000 or people have ordered, 2,000 hens, 20 or 30 or 100 at a time, so that they can have some nice little hens in their backyard and have eggs to eat. Well, that's fine, except in order to get 2,000, they're hatching about 4,500 eggs. Hatching 4,500 to get 2,000, well, it's real simple. 51% to 53% of everything that has 2 sexes is going to be male because of the mortality in males. That's very simple. So what happens to all those roosters? They've only got an order for 2,000 Rhode Island red hens and 13 roosters. What are they going to do with the other 2,300 roosters? Well, sometimes they throw them against the wall. Sometimes they just put them in a bucket and then in a blender and grind them up. Sometimes they bury them. It can be barbaric, and I don't think that there is there's a humane way of dealing with all those chicks. The thing is, all those male chicks, the cockerels, are destroyed. They're not needed. So, to me, that's not a sustainable way of living. What can we do sustainability-wise? Well, I don't know. I haven't really raised a whole bunch of roosters before to find out what the viability would be. So that's what this experiment is. I ordered 200, was offered a deal on 100 more, so there's about 310 roosters supposedly in here. I know a few of them are hens, and that's always going to happen. But let's say 310 roosters. And 310 roosters in here that were going to be destroyed in one manner by the hatchery. Instead, I'm using the resource to create meat birds for myself. Now, there's no question that they'll grow up and that we'll be able to eat them. I mean, that's a given. There's no question on that. The question is, number one, is it going to be economically, financially viable? Number two, is it environmentally viable? And number three, how do they taste? Well, we've covered in the part one, we covered feed and everything you need to know about feed. Now I'm going to give you some facts and figures, because these birds here, they're 8 weeks old now. And at 8 weeks, I'm able to finally do some graphing and chart some of the progress that we're making. So let's let me start. You might want to get a pencil and paper, or pen and paper, if you're actually going to track some of these things. So, I know Cornish Crosses vary in price. I've seen them from a low of like $1.44 to a high of, I think at McMurray Hatchery, they're $2.75. Now that's including shipping. Per bird, for about 100 of them, it's $2.75 at McMurray. So, if you buy the Cornish Crosses right up front, you're paying, let's just use McMurray as a guideline, $2.75 a bird. Now that's including shipping. You're paying $2.75 to get the Cornish Cross. Cornish Cross is going to grow very, very fast. We know that. It's going to grow fast, and it's going to have a feed to weight gain ratio of 3 to 1. That means for every 3 pounds of chicken feed you feed it, you're going to get 1 pound of live bird. Not 1 pound of carcass, 1 pound of live bird. Now that figure can go down if you're able to pasture the birds, or if you have other feed you can offer them. But using the worst case scenario, in fact, using a test sampling, you're going to always use feed as your feed, as opposed to sprouted grains or anything like that, pasturing. So it's 3 to 1. Now that's been my experience with about 1,000 that we've raised, and everything I've read. 3 to 1 is just about it on Cornish Crosses. When I was in the commercial chicken business, we actually got that down to just under 2 to 1. But that was using hormones, steroids, and antibiotics, which none of us want to do. That's the reason we're hatching our own. So 3 to 1 is pretty much what you're going to get, going all the way through raising a Cornish Cross up to a 6-pound carcass. Now it's 6-pound carcass, 6-pound live weight bird, excuse me. Going to happen at about 8 weeks. Where we are with these guys right now, you're going to hit that 6 pounds. It's going to cost you $8, and I got to look at my notes here. Oh, right here. Here's my notes. Going to cost you $8.85, roughly, to raise that Cornish Cross, to get it from the hatchery and raise it up. It's going to cost you $8.85 to get a 6-pound bird. Not too bad. 6-pound bird's going to give you 4.5-pound carcass, 4.5-pound carcass, $8.85, so, you know, $2.20-ish a pound. That's what it's going to cost you to get a wholesome, all-natural bird that you can't sit down and eat the whole bird like you can these store-bought things that are pumped full of broth added. Again, that's covered in part 1. I can only eat half of one breast on my big birds. That's all I can eat. That's how dense the meat is. But at any rate, it's going to cost you about $2.20 a pound, anywhere from $2 to $2.25 a pound to raise a Cornish Cross. Now, what I'm hoping is that I can come up with a figure that's either close to that or like that much higher. Because what we've done here is these were going to be destroyed anyway. This, by the way, is a Australope, and I found Australopes to be a bit aggressive, especially the roosters, and he's trying to pick me. Ah, he got me there. Anyway, he's going to make a nice meal whenever he hits 6 pounds. Now, we don't know when that's going to be. What I do know is that they grow a lot slower. These birds are 8 weeks old, and the average weight is 2 pounds 1 ounce right now. I've got some that are 2 pounds 10 ounces, and I've got some that are under 2 pounds right now. So I picked 2-1 as an average. I obviously can't weigh them all and average them out, so I did it by weighing about 10 or 15 of them and seeing about what I got for an average. It's probably a little higher than that, but 2.1 makes it look worse, which is what I want. I want the worst case scenario, dollars and cents wise here. Now they're 8 weeks old. Now the first video that I did, part 1, I was shocked. I was very, very shocked. I was pretty much thought I would come to this, but I was fairly shocked when I did my feed to weight gain ratio out on these birds. It was 5.1 pounds to 1. 5.5 pounds of feed to get 1 pound of bird. Now I only had about 1.5 pounds of bird at that point, but it was 5.5 to 1. Now everything has changed, and I was really shocked. At 8 weeks, when I did my cost analysis on these, it came out to 3.3 pounds to 1. 3.3 pounds of feed for every 1 pound of gain. See, they hit a growth spurt somewhere in there. Right now, it's generally between 6 and 10 weeks where you hit that growth spurt with most birds, heritage birds. Frankenbirds, I haven't raised them in so long. I don't know, but it seems to me that it was actually around 4 weeks that they hit that growth spurt. So that surprised me when my feed costs came down. Now that's putting in the cost of everything that I feed them and to arrive at that number. 3.3 to 1 is pretty good. Now here's the kicker though. Cornish Cross is at 3 to 1. They're going to come of age within 8 weeks. Let's say you're going to slaughter them at 8. Some people will carry them to 10 weeks. I have, but let's use 8 weeks, which is closer to what everyone does. It's 10 weeks, $8.85, 3 to 1 is about what your ratio is going to be. When you kill them, you're going to have a breast that's anywhere from like here to here. In other words, the V, the keel of the breast, is going to look like, like that. Now, when you take these birds up, he bit me again. When you take these birds up to slaughter size, you're going to have a breast like that. So right away, you're not getting as much breast meat on the bird. Where's the weight going? Well, the weight's going into the thighs and legs. That's all right. As a chef, I prefer the thigh meat anyway. I do love my breast meat. Now, you still get a sizable breast, though. When you get a 6-pound bird here, you've still got a sizable breast. It just isn't a big monster Cornish Cross breast. So there's the one difference that you have to ask yourself. Is it worth it for me to raise the Cornish to get that little bit bigger breast? You're still getting the same amount of bird and carcass. You're just getting a little bigger breast. Now, these birds, I had figured when I started this whole experiment, I had figured I would carry these birds out to about 16 weeks. It now looks like I might have to carry them to 20. 20 weeks is 4 months. 8 weeks is 2 months. Hello? That's simple, right? I might have to carry them to 20. However, if I'm still getting 3.3 feed to weight gain ratio, the extra time isn't costing me anything, and it shouldn't be costing you anything. Doing it in the summer, they're not using any electricity for heat. Besides, these are well beyond needing supplemental heat anyway. If I get to 3.3 carried out for 20 weeks, it's not going to affect the dollar cost, but that is something you have to remember. And in fact, this whole series is going to take me until November to finish because, first of all, I have to bring these birds up to processing size. Then I have to follow it by raising some Cornish Crosses, and I want to do a taste comparison, and I'm also going to do a cost analysis as well, just to verify the 3.3. I'm going to put it out here on a video, and I'm also going to do a booklet that you can buy, and please do buy it because it'll help support our work here. So where we are now, 2.1 pounds, we have, so getting back to the Cornish Crosses, just revisit it one last time. You're going to have about $8.85 invested in a bird that's going to weigh about 6 to 7 pounds, let's say, by the time you bring them to processing size. You're going to have 18 pounds of feed into that bird. That's how you arrive at the higher cost, is with 18 pounds. Now with these birds here, I'm going to have closer to 20 pounds of feed in them from the way things are going right now. Now I have to get my glasses and my notes so I can read you the rest, because my first take on this I really screwed up bad. With these birds, they've each eaten 7 pounds of feed, roughly. They've eaten 7 pounds of feed. That gives me my feed conversion of 3.3 to 1. Now, in terms of the feed costs alone, I've got $1.13 a pound in these birds. The total cost per bird right now, the cost of buying the birds, the cost of the feed, which is the only costs that I have, is $2.96 a bird right at the moment. So that comes out to pretty close to $1.50 a pound right now. Again, we're going to hit this. We're into that growth spurt where they're going to gain a lot of body weight right now, so things will adjust out, and we'll watch for part 3. But that's where we are right now on them. Is $2.96 a bird is what I've got into it, which is still much less than the $8.85 in a Cornish Cross. So there's a long way to go, and I've got a significant savings. And what you have to ask yourself is the extra money that a Cornish Cross is going to cost you in feed and in the initial cost, is it worth that big old fat breast, or would you rather have some nice thigh meat to cook with? We'll get into that in some cooking videos later on. Now, as we're in the desert, I have to feed. And again, I covered the feed in detail in part 1. But I'm also doing something else. At first, I was trying to sprout Milo, because Milo cost me about $8 for a 50-pound bag. Milo isn't sprouting for me. I don't know whether it's summertime. I really don't know what. I wasn't getting Milo to sprout, but when I first sprouted, I had a little bit of millet left that I sprouted with. Millet sprouted great. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually growing as many trays as I can grow in here and still have room for my microgreens. They're trays about like this. The birds get 2 of them a day full of millet sprouts. I raise the millet up to about that high and give that to the birds. Now that's supplementing my feed costs. So I'm not raising them on pure feed. I'm using the sprouts, and I'm really getting quite aggressive in growing the millet sprouts. Also, since we have a horse, we buy alfalfa hay for him. I've also bought a bale of hay, which is figured into my cost analysis here. And that bale of hay, I'm giving them 1 flake twice a day right now. As we get a little bit closer to slaughter time, within about 3 weeks of slaughter, I'm going to taper that down to 1 flake a day, not 2 a day. Just because you get that old wives' tale. Well, if you feed them too much alfalfa, they'll taste like alfalfa. Well, you know, I've had times when I've fed my birds garlic on purpose, garlic and onion on purpose, my hens, and the eggs didn't taste like garlic and onions, so I kind of think that's kind of a that's something not to worry about. So we're giving them the supplemental millet, we're giving them the alfalfa and the regular feed, and this is where we are right now. 2 pounds 1 ounce, and we got a little vicious Australope here. And we'll see where we are, and when we hit 12 weeks, and I'll do part 3. Probably be a lot shorter than this, because I think I've given you all the information. I'll just give you the numbers in part 3 and show you the birds. But you can get a good idea. This is one of the bigger birds here. This is closer to average. This guy's closer to average, that vicious sucker. And that's it. So I hope that this gets you thinking a little bit, especially if you're going to raise meat birds. Get you thinking off of the Cornish Cross and all the extra resources the Cornish Cross takes. Not that it's a bad bird, it's just the extra resources. Get you thinking along the lines of utilizing this available resource that's very inexpensive to get, and it's already there. They're hatching these every time they hatch. One hen, they've got 1 1/10 of these guys hatching out. So give you something to think on. Let's see how the rest of the experiment plays out. Stay tuned. It'll be about we should be about 4 weeks before we do part 3, and I'll see you for part 3. So until then, it's Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch Sustainable Living Education Center saying, see you later.